dream it all. Listen close and join my song. Gentle stories all night long. Snuggle in and rest your head. Magic dreams will now be spread. Close your eyes so calm and bright. Now begins our dream. Now begins our dream.
Lulu and the snow that couldn't melt. Snow fell softly from a pale sky, though the air was still and the wind asleep. Each flake drifted slowly, as if afraid to touch the ground. Lulu walked through the quiet forest, her small hooves crunching faintly in the snow. The world around her glimmered like glass, frozen branches, silver trees, and rivers turned to mirrors. She looked up. The light was strange here. The sun hung low behind a haze, and yet nothing melted. Lulu paused beside a frozen brook. "You're beautiful," she whispered, "but aren't you cold?" The brook didn't answer. Its frozen surface caught her reflection perfectly, her soft wool, her curious eyes, but even the faint ripples of breath above it turned to frost in the air. As she watched, a faint sound broke the stillness, a jingling, like tiny bells hidden beneath the snow. Lulu turned her head and followed the sound until she saw movement between the trees, a flash of silver, quick and bright. A small fox, white as moonlight, dashed through the snowdrifts. His fur shimmered with a faint blue glow, and wherever his paws touched, the frost deepened instead of melting. "Hello!" Lulu called softly. The fox skidded to a stop and looked at her, eyes bright like crystal water. "You can see me?" Lulu smiled. "Of course. Why wouldn't I?" "Because most don't anymore." His voice was young but echoing, as though it came from far away. "They see snow, not what's beneath it." He patted closer, curious but cautious. "I'm Nero," he said. "You shouldn't stay here long. The snow never ends." Lulu tilted her head. "Never?" He shook his head, small flakes tumbling from his ears. "The sun passes over, but it doesn't change anything. The world forgets to move here." She looked around. The trees were beautiful, wrapped in white lace, but their branches never swayed. It was a picture, perfect and still. "Why doesn't it melt?" Lulu asked softly. Nero lowered his gaze. "Because the winter isn't made of cold. It's made of memory." Lulu's will glimmered faintly in the reflected light. "Memory?" He nodded. "Someone loved this snow so much. It never left." Before Lulu could reply, a faint glow flickered through the air, golden, trembling like candlelight trapped in crystal. It drifted closer, casting soft warmth on the frozen branches. Nero's ears twitched. She's awake again. The light gathered, and from within it stepped a small, delicate figure, wings like morning frost, skin like sunlight through glass. Her glow flickered weakly, but it was beautiful all the same. "Who are you?" Lulu whispered. The figure smiled faintly. "I am Elandra, keeper of the turning seasons." Her voice was kind but tired. Or I was, until the world forgot to move. Nero stepped forward. "You mean until the snow stopped melting?" Elandra's light dimmed for a moment. "Yes, the snow that could not melt because it remembers what it was loved for." Lulu blinked softly. "Loved for?" Elandra nodded slowly. "Once, there was a child who wished the winter would never end because they feared the spring would take someone they loved away. The wish was pure, but wishes made of sorrow never fade." Nero's tail brushed the snow, leaving no print. "So we've been living in that wish ever since." Lulu looked around the forest again, the frozen rivers, the unmoving air, the perfect stillness. She could feel it now, beneath the beauty, the ache of something that couldn't let go. "Then maybe," Lulu said quietly, "it's time to help the wish rest." Elandra's golden eyes met hers. "You would do that?" Lulu nodded gently. "Every season deserves to breathe." The fairy's light flickered, and a faint smile warmed her face. "Then you must go to the heart of winter, where the wish was made. But beware, warmth cannot enter there easily." Nero's ears perked. "Then I'll guide her. I know the frozen paths." Elandra bowed her head slightly. "Then go quickly. The snow remembers your steps." Lulu took a breath, her wool shimmering faintly. "Then let's wake the spring together." And as they set off through the glowing frost, the air stirred faintly, almost shyly, as if something deep within the endless winter had heard her voice. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became. The air grew colder, the light sharper, not painful, just endless. Every branch carried 1,000 tiny icicles that glowed like stars when Lulu passed beneath them. Nero trotted ahead, his silver blue fur casting soft reflections across the snow. "The heart of winter lies beyond the frost veil," he said. "It's where all the memories gather." Lulu followed, her hooves sinking slightly into the snow. It didn't feel cold to her, more like walking through clouds that had forgotten how to float. "What happens if the memories fade?" she asked softly. Nero slowed and looked back. "Then the snow will melt. The river will move again. The sun will feel warm." "And you?" Lulu asked. The fox looked down, his paw tracing a circle in the frost. "I don't know. I was born from this winter. If it ends, maybe I'll fade too." Lulu's eyes softened. "Maybe you'll change instead." He tilted his head, puzzled. "Change?" Sometimes light doesn't disappear, Lulu said. It just becomes something else. They walked on in silence for a while, the snow crunching softly beneath them. As they climbed a small hill, a sound began to grow, faint and rhythmic, like a heartbeat under ice. The frost veil, Nero whispered. Before them rose a curtain of misty blue light that stretched across the valley like frozen smoke. The air around it shimmered, and the ground was covered in tiny fragments of crystal, each glowing faintly. Lulu stepped closer. It's beautiful. Nero nodded. And dangerous. Everything that was ever loved and never let go lives beyond that veil. Lulu looked at him calmly. Then we should go gently. They passed through together. The light enveloped them, and for a moment, Lulu felt herself float weightless, soundless, like drifting through a memory not her own. She saw shapes in the frost, shadows of children laughing, snowflakes caught in sunlight, hands building snowmen that would never melt. When she opened her eyes again, the world beyond the veil was pure silver. The trees here were made of frost glass, their trunks hollow and filled with light. Snow fell upward instead of down, vanishing into the air like forgotten dreams. At the center of this strange land stood a clock made of ice, tall, fragile, and still. Its hands were frozen mid-turn, and faint light pulsed from within it, like a heart that had stopped beating long ago. That's it, Nero said quietly. The heart of winter. Lulu stepped forward. As she approached, she could feel it, the longing, the ache of something that wanted to move but couldn't. She placed her hoof on the icy surface, and for a moment, the air trembled. A voice drifted through the stillness, faint and sorrowful. Please don't let the snow melt. I want them to stay. Lulu closed her eyes. That's the wish. Nero looked up at the frozen clock. It was made by a child, long ago. They didn't know that love and loss are the same dance. Lulu nodded softly. Then maybe it's time to show the winter that love doesn't need to freeze to stay. She took a slow breath, her wool glowing faintly in the icy light. Alandra said warmth can't enter here easily. Nero's tail flicked. Then we'll carry it ourselves. The air shimmered as Lulu's glow spread outward, faint golden warmth, soft as morning sunlight through frost. The frozen clock quivered, and for the first time in centuries, a single snowflake melted on its surface. The sound was so small it could have been mistaken for silence, but it wasn't. It was the sound of change. Nero's eyes widened. You did it. Lulu smiled gently. No, the winter did. It remembered how to breathe. But as her light spread further, the frost around them stirred, and shapes began to form within it, pale figures of ice, eyes closed, caught in mid-motion. Murmurs filled the air, soft and mournful. If the snow melts, they'll be gone. If warmth comes, we'll forget. Nero took a step back. They're the memories. Lulu's voice was steady. Then we'll remind them that melting isn't forgetting. The light from her wool brightened, golden and kind, and the figures of ice turned their faces toward her, uncertain, afraid, but listening. The figures stood frozen in the silver light, their edges trembling like glass before sunrise. Some were tall and graceful, some small and childlike, all of them sculpted from pure frost, memories that refused to fade. Nero pressed close to Lulu's side. "They don't look alive," he whispered. Lulu shook her head softly. "They're waiting." A faint voice drifted through the air, distant and layered, as if carried by snowflakes themselves. "We were laughter once. We were a winter's wish. We stayed so we wouldn't lose what we loved." Lulu stepped closer, her breath forming soft clouds in the cold air. "You didn't lose it," she said gently. "You just forgot how to let it move." The closest of the frozen figures, a woman holding a child, shuddered faintly. "If we melt, we vanish." Lulu looked at her, eyes calm and kind. "When snow melts, it becomes the river becomes the rain becomes the sky. Nothing vanishes, it only changes shape." The air trembled. Small cracks of light began to run along the frozen shapes, not breaking them, but softening their edges. Nero's tail flicked nervously. "They're listening." A deeper, older voice spoke, slow as ice breaking under the sun. "But if we let go, who will remember?" Lulu's will glowed brighter. "The world will," she said softly. "It remembers everything that learns how to love again." A ripple passed through the heart of winter. The great frozen clock groaned, one of its hands twitching ever so slightly. The sound was distant, but it carried through the stillness like a sigh of relief. Alandra's faint voice echoed from far away, her light barely visible through the veil of frost. "Keep speaking, Lulu. They are listening through the snow." Lulu took a breath. "You don't have to keep the world frozen to keep it close. Every time someone laughs in the snow, every time someone remembers a winter's day, you live again." The air shimmered, and the figures began to weep tiny droplets of light that slid down their faces like melting tears. The drops fell to the ground and vanished into the snow, leaving behind a faint golden glow. Nero looked around, his voice trembling. "They're melting." "Not melting," Lulu whispered. "Becoming." One by one, the frozen memories faded, replaced by flurries of silver dust that drifted upward, dissolving into soft light. As they rose, the temperature of the air changed, not warmer, not colder, but alive. And then the great clock moved. Tick. A sound so small, yet the entire forest seemed to breathe again. Alandra appeared beside them, her wings unfurling in a burst of light. The frost that had trapped her shimmered, then cracked, breaking away like pieces of old glass. Her voice was bright and clear now. "You've done it. The memory has turned into motion." Nero's ears twitched. "Does that mean?" Elandra smiled. "The seasons can turn again." Lulu looked up. The light filtering through the icy trees was changing, no longer sharp and white, but tinged with gold. She could smell something new on the wind, earth, sap, and the faintest promise of rain. "The snow is beginning to melt," she said softly. The fairy's golden light flickered warmly. "Yes, but gently, as every ending should." Nero lowered his gaze to the ground where the figures had stood. In their place, the snow was shining softly, as though it carried hidden stars beneath its surface. "They didn't disappear," he whispered. "They became the light." Lulu nodded. "And the world is remembering how to move." Above them, a single flake of snow melted in midair, turning into a drop of water that glowed as it fell. It landed on the face of the great clock, and the second hand began to move again. Tick, tick. The sound was gentle, steady, eternal. The sound of the clock rolled softly through the valley, each tick scattering a ripple of warmth that shimmered through the air. The silver mist began to thin, and for the first time, Lulu could see sunlight touching the snow, faint and golden, like hope returning after a long sleep. Elandra stood at the center of the heart of winter, her wings unfolding fully for the first time in what felt like centuries. Each movement shed fine trails of frost that dissolved into light. "It's happening," she whispered. "The cycle is breathing again." Nero lifted his face to the sunlight. A small droplet of meltwater landed on his nose, and his eyes widened. "It's warm," he said, half in disbelief, half in wonder. Lulu smiled. "That's the sound of change." Around them, the great frozen forest began to stir. Ice cracked softly on the trees, snow slipped from branches, and the river below the hill gave its first sigh, a faint trickle, like a whisper turning into song. But the thaw came slowly. The deeper layers of frost still clung to the ground, afraid to vanish. Elandra turned to Lulu, her voice gentle but serious. "The winter's heart still holds one final memory. It's buried beneath the ice, the first wish that began it all." Nero's tail flicked nervously. The child's wish. Lulu's will shimmered faintly. "Then we have to set it free." They walked toward the frozen lake beneath the clock. The surface was smooth and flawless, like a mirror holding the past. As Lulu approached, she saw shapes inside the ice, faint and glowing. A small pair of footprints. A child's mitten. And beside it, a faint outline of two hands holding each other. Elandra knelt beside the frozen image. The wish was made here by a child who lost someone they loved. They begged the snow to never melt, so the world would never change. Nero's voice was small, That's sad. Lulu touched the ice with her hoof. It's love that didn't know how to let go. The lake shimmered faintly beneath her touch, and a soft voice, fragile as wind through glass, echoed up from within. Please, just one more day of winter. Please don't let the spring take them away. Lulu closed her eyes. They didn't want goodbye. Alandra's wings dimmed. Few hearts ever do. For a moment, the world was utterly still again, as if waiting for something to break the silence. Then Lulu took a deep breath and began to hum, slow, gentle, the same melody she had used to wake the river and the bells before. But this time, her song was heavier, full of love and grief and release. The ice beneath her began to glow softly. The footprints shimmered, the mitten turned to light, and the joined hands dissolved into silver dust that rose into the air. Nero whispered, "They're leaving." Lulu shook her head. "They're moving on." The snow around them melted in circles, revealing patches of earth that shimmered faintly with gold. The air filled with the scent of thawing soil and blooming grass. Alandra stood tall, her wings radiant. "You've freed the wish, Lulu. The child's love will live in every winter, but it will no longer hold the world still." The fairy looked upward, her voice full of awe. "Look." The clouds above them broke apart, scattering into ribbons of blue and gold. A flock of birds, small, black silhouettes, crossed the sky, singing as they passed. Nero's eyes filled with tears of light. "I've never seen birds before." Lulu smiled softly. "Then it's time you learned what spring sounds like." The great clock behind them gave one final, deep note, not a tick this time, but a bell, clear and full. It echoed through the valley, through the forest, through the thawing rivers. The heart of winter shone once more, then began to melt, its ice turning into 1,000 streams of silver water that flowed outward into the waking world. Alandra turned to Lulu, her voice warm as sunlight. "The winter will return again someday, but now it will end when it should." Lulu nodded gently, because even cold things need rest. By the next morning, the world had changed. Where there had once been only white and silence, color now began to breathe again, faint green beneath the snow, the scent of soft earth, the sound of a river finding its song. Lulu stood at the edge of the forest, watching sunlight slide across the melting branches. Tiny drops fell from every icicle, each one flashing gold before touching the ground. Beside her, Nero chased the falling droplets, laughing with a joy he didn't know he could feel. "It's warm," he said, as one landed on his nose and rolled down like a tiny pearl. "I can feel the air again." Alandra hovered near the treetops, her wings scattering golden light that melted the last traces of frost. "The seasons are awake," she said softly. "The balance has returned." Lulu turned to her, smiling. "Will you stay?" The fairy's expression softened. "No, my light belongs to all the seasons. I must go where the first blossoms need me, but I will leave part of my glow here so winter never forgets what warmth feels like. She reached out, and a small thread of light drifted from her palm into the snow. It melted in a perfect circle, revealing the first flower of the year, a tiny white bloom, trembling but alive. Nero leaned close. "It's beautiful," he whispered. Elandra smiled. "Every ending leaves something behind to begin again." The air shimmered faintly, and she began to fade, her voice growing distant but kind. "Thank you, Lulu. You reminded the world that love is not meant to be frozen." Lulu whispered, "Goodbye, Elandra." The last spark of the fairy's light lifted into the sky and vanished into the sun. Silence returned, but not the heavy, lonely kind. This silence was gentle, full of promise. Nero sat beside Lulu, his tail wrapped around her hoof. "Will the snow come back next year?" Lulu nodded. "Of course, but this time it will remember how to melt." They sat together as the morning stretched over the land. The ice on the river cracked and drifted. Birds sang in the branches above, and somewhere in the distance, the great clock of the heart of winter gave one last soft chime, not an ending, but a beginning. A single snowflake fell from the fading clouds above, the very last of the endless winter. It landed on Lulu's nose, shimmered, and melted into a drop of light that sparkled on her wool. Nero smiled. The last snowflake. Lulu looked up at the bright sky. "No," she said softly. "The first raindrop." And together, they laughed, the sound rising into the air, carried by the breeze that had finally remembered how to move.
Now it's quiet, night is near. Drift away through stars so clear. Lulu whispers soft and bright. Sleep so well and good night. Sweetest dreams will softly flow. Lulu stays with you, you know. Till we meet again, my dear. Let your dreams keep drawing near. Till we meet again, my dear. Let your dreams keep drawing